Again, let's start again. No? So ano ba ang business taxes? Business taxes are taxes imposed on the sale, barter, exchange, lease, and rendition of services and importation of goods. Okay? So, what are the types of business taxes? We have value-added tax, other percentage taxes, and excise taxes. So when you say value-added tax, ito yung 12% no, of the selling price of the sales, gross sales or receipts. And when you say other percentage taxes, ito yung 3% no, of the gross sales or receipts. With respect to excise taxes naman, this refer to taxes imposed on seen products or non-essential goods, no, like cigarettes, alcohols, yung mga non-essential goods like jewelries, like one amendment no by the train law is the non-essential services, yung mga medical surgery, yung cosmetic surgery, yung invasive, no, particularly yung invasive cosmetic surgery, yung pagpapaayos ng mga ilong, ng mga bibig, mga simod diha, mga kuan kanang gusto jud mahimong perfect. So moto siya no, those services are now subject to excise taxes. Okay, no, let's continue. So basically yun ang mga types of business taxes. Now let's proceed to the first no, type of business tax, value-added taxes. Okay, that is provided for under Section 105 of the NIRC. So who are liable for value-added tax? It says here that any person, no distinctions, no? So kahit kanino, any person, meaning individual or juridical person, in the course of trade or business. Okay? If you are engaged no, in trade or business, then you will fall under Section 105. Who sells, barters, exchanges, leases goods or properties, renders services, and any person who imports goods shall be subject to the value-added tax no, imposed in Sections 106 to 108 of this code. So, isa-isahin natin. So, if you can still recall no, our discussion last meeting, di ba, na-mention natin na if you are engaged in the ordinary course of trade or business, then you will be subject to business taxes. Okay? So, para maintindihan natin mabuti, let us distinguish no, transfer taxes from business taxes. Transfer taxes are taxes imposed upon gratuitous transfers, remember? Meaning, yung mga transfer na walang consideration. Merong consideration, liberality, pero walang burden on the other party, di ba? But here, in business taxes, these are taxes imposed upon onerous transfers. Meaning to say, there is an equivalent burden or an equivalent price on the part of the other party, meaning on both sides, no, the seller and the buyer. So transfer taxes are for gratuitous transfers, business taxes are for onerous transfers. So when you say onerous transfers, there are two kinds, no? One is made in the ordinary course of trade or business, and the other one is made not in the ordinary course of trade or business, di ba? Kasi you can enter into onerous transactions naman even if you are not engaged in trade or business. Like for example, you are selling your laptop or you are selling your car, your personal car. That is an onerous transfer, correct? However, that does not necessarily mean that you are engaged in trade or business. Okay? So, meaning, may dalawang klaseng onerous transfer. You are engaged in trade or business or you are not engaged in trade or business. Now, if you are engaged in trade or business, you are, of course, nagnenegosyo ka, tama? Dahil nagnenegosyo ka, you are expecting or you are parang you are conducting business because you have an expectation to earn profit, tama? Or to earn income, correct? So, if that is the case, dalawa yung taxes na i-impose sa'yo ng government, no? One tax for the privilege to conduct business, and the other one is a tax on the profit earned. Okay? Paano? So ano yon? Yung tax on the conduct of trade or business, yun ang tinatawag nating business tax. Okay? Business tax yun siya. Yung isa naman na tax na ini-impose natin kapag meron kang profit or income, yun ang tinatawag nating income tax. Okay? So ngayon, ano ba ang kaibahan ng business tax tsaka income tax? Yung business tax, the government imposes business tax regardless of the result of the business transaction. Meaning to say, kahit nagkaroon ka ng income o wala, subject ka to a business tax. Kuha nyo? Pero, with respect to income tax, kailangan meron kang income. Okay? Para masasubject ka sa income tax. Kasi kung wala kang income, you are at a loss, therefore you are not subject to income tax. So that is basically the difference between business taxes and income tax. Now, with respect to onerous transfers, which are not made in the ordinary course of trade or business, not made in the ordinary course of trade or business, meaning to say, hindi ka nagbebenta, you are not selling, you are not engaged in bartering, in exchanging, leasing goods or properties, yung ganon. So, kung hindi ka engaged into these transactions, hindi ka subject to VAT or to business taxes. Kuha nyo? Kasi hindi ka naman engaged in trade or business. However, since you are earning income from that onerous transfer, even if that is not made in the ordinary course of trade or business, you are still subject to tax. And what tax is that? Income tax. Now, income tax pala doesn't necessarily result from a business transaction. So, pwedeng may ibang sources, no? Review natin yung income taxation natin. Marami tayong forms of or sources of income, right? We have from compensation. Hindi ka naman nagnenegosyo sa compensation, tama? Rendering a service in exchange for a compensation or a salary is not a business, no? Isa yan sa mga exempt from business tax or exempt from value-added tax. What else? If you are engaged in the practice of your profession, alam naman natin, no, yung principle natin dyan that the practice of profession is not a money-making business, no? Kahit yung ibang mga professions. Because practice of profession is imbued, no, with public interest, no? Hindi natin tinitreat yan as business, okay? So, yun ang kaibahan ng income tsaka ng business tax. Now, balik tayo dito sa value-added tax. So, dalawang klaseng transaction yung covered ng value-added tax. One is if you are engaged in trade or business. Okay? And the second one is if you imported goods, no, to the Philippines. Okay? Regardless of whether or not that goods are being sold in the ordinary course of trade or business in the Philippines. Kasi wala namang sinabi ang batas. For as long as nag-import ka, subject yan sa value-added tax. Okay? So, value-added tax is an indirect tax, and the amount of tax may be shifted or passed on to the buyer, transferee, or lessee of the goods, properties, or services. Now, this particular provision means that meron tayong dalawang kind of taxes, no, as to sino yung directly liable, di ba? We have direct tax and indirect tax. When you say direct tax, ikaw yung may liability sa tax, ikaw din yung directly nagbabayad. Okay? When you say indirect tax, ikaw yung may liability but hindi ikaw yung directly nagbabayad ng tax. Yan yung indirect. Okay? Like for example, sa mall, di ba? Sa NCCC Mall. Saan ba kayo nag-shopping or nag-grocery or nagmo-malling? Sa Robinsons ba? Or sa G Mall or sa Grand Mall? Okay. Di ba pag mag-mall tayo, parang pag madungog na, memorize na tong kanta, no, sa mall. Memorize nyo ba? Hindi. Ako memorize ko eh. Kanta bagay ko gapil. Okay, so let's continue, no? So like for example sa mga malls, no? Bumili ka ng, let us say, damit, no? Sa mall. Okay, kasi syempre may occasion, gusto mo bumili ng bagong damit. So ngayon, pagtingin mo dun sa resibo, may nakita ka dong value-added tax. Okay? I don't know if alam nyo kung paano hanapin yung VAT sa resibo. Nasa lower portion yan, kasama doon sa pagkatapos ng total amount. Makikita mo yun sa baba, i-breakdown nila yon, no? Kung magkano yung net of VAT, tsaka magkano yung value-added tax. Kasi that is required under the law na kailangan nating i-breakdown yung details, no, ng VAT. Okay? So, ngayon, meron kang binayaran na VAT kasali dun sa price ng damit na binili mo. However, natandaan mo ba na nagbayad ka ng VAT sa BIR? May natandaan ka bang instance na pumunta ka sa BIR sa land bank para bayaran yung VAT? Di ba, never mong ginawa yan? Yung iba nga, hindi nila na-notice na nagbabayad sila ng VAT. Okay? Kasi hindi naman nila alam na may VAT pala yung goods na binabayaran nila. Okay? So, meaning to say, value-added tax is an indirect tax. Why? Ikaw yung liable, tama? However, hindi naman ikaw yung directly nagbabayad ng tax. Nakuha nyo? Okay? So, kaya indirect yung tax. And the amount of tax may be shifted or passed on to the buyer, lessee or transferee. Paano ito nangyayari? Like for example, pumunta ka ng NCCC Mall para bumili ng grocery para sa tindahan mo. Okay? Nangumpra ka ba? Nangumpra ka, no? Dinaghan. So karon, kung pag magbaligya ka ni mo sa imong kinumpra, of course, kasali doon yung VAT, tama? So, pag presyo mo, tubuan ni mo 5 pesos ang presyo sa imong napalit or ang cost sa imong napalit, di ba? So meaning to say, pag yung product na yan na ibenta mo yan sa kapitbahay mo, say bumili siya ng tinapa, magkano bang tinapa ngayon? Ano ba yung favorite nyo na tinapa? Mega sardines ba? Yung ligo sardines. May ligo ba? Yung udong nga lami. Nga makahigugma. So, okay? So, ngayon, binenta mo yung ligo sardines sa kapitbahay mo. Take note na nung binili mo yung ligo sardines, meron yung VAT, tama? May kasamang VAT yun sa mall. Pagbenta mo, alangan na maibenta mo siya net of VAT. Of course, papatungan mo yung cost ng ng tinapa. Kunyari nabili mo yan ng 10 pesos, edi ibenta mo ng 15 pesos. O ganon. Hindi pwedeng 10 pesos, kunan mo ng VAT, tapos tubuan mo, hindi ganon. Kasi pwede nating ipasa, i-shift yung burden sa buyer, transferee, or lessee. Kaya indirect tax ang tawag sa kanya. Okay? Now, let's go to the phrase in the course of trade or business. Okay? Napag-usapan natin to kanina. Ano ba ang ibig sabihin ng in the course of trade or business? It means the regular conduct. Ayan, regular. Okay? Yan yung isang element. Meaning to say, hindi lang once or twice. Regularly. Okay? Pwedeng daily, every 2 days, weekly, basta regular yung conduct mo ng commercial or economic activity. Hindi yung nagbenta ka lang ng laptop once kasi binenta mo yung luma mong laptop. Hindi ganon ang business. Ang business is meron kang supply, binibenta mo regularly. Nakuha nyo? Or meron kang services, nagpo-provide ka regularly. Open ka to public, no? Nyo? Or kung leases naman, yung units mo, available yan to the public, no? Kahit na, let us say, hindi naman araw-araw, hindi naman every month ka kumikita, pero for as long as you are readily available, no, to the public, yung services tsaka yung goods mo, that constitutes regular conduct or pursuit of a commercial or an economic activity, including transactions incidental thereto. Okay? By any person. Ayan o, nakalagay. By any person. Meaning, walang distinction. Whether or not the person engaged therein is a non-stock, non-profit, private organization. Okay? So kahit pala hindi ka, yung charter mo, hindi ka engaged into trade or business, for as long as nag-engage ka in a trade or business, masasubject ka, mako-consider siyang in the course of trade or business. And therefore, you may be subjected to value-added tax. So, paano natin i-summarize to para maintindihan natin mabuti? Hindi nagmamatter kung sino ang parties dito. Sino si seller, sino si buyer. Okay? What matters here is the transaction. Okay? Ano ba yung transaction? Kung ang transaction is made in the course of trade or business, it's either nagbenta ka, nagbarter ka, nag-exchange ka, nag-lease ka, or nag-render ka ng service, or if nag-import ka, hindi magmamatter kung sino yung parties, si seller sino, si buyer sino, hindi magmamatter, then you are subject to value-added tax. Even a government entity is subject to VAT. Okay? So, let us say, for example, a non-stock, non-profit school, private school. Merong, syempre, like malaki yung kanilang building. Sa labas ng building nila, meron silang commercial spaces for rent. Okay? Ang charter ng school is for educational purposes, right? So, ano ba yung mga incidental doon? Magbenta ng, may canteen, tama? Merong books, mga ganyan. Diba? So, those are incidental transactions. Pero kung meron kang commercial spaces outside the school, but within the school premises, no? Outside ka pupasok pero part siya ng school, yun yung ibig sabihin natin kanina, and you rent that out to any person who is willing to, of course, to rent the space, then you are engaging in trade or business, correct? You are now engaged in trade or business because you are renting it out to any person who is willing to pay for it, to pay for the rent, correct? And to enter into transaction with the school. So kahit na yung school na yan is a non-stock, non-profit private school, for as long as meron siyang mga transactions that are earning profit or income, then that particular transaction is now subject to value added tax. Okay? Now, we said earlier that in the course of trade or business must be a regular conduct or pursuit of a commercial or an economic activity. So meaning to say, kapag yung transaction is regular, yung engage ng trade or business, sinasabi natin that is subject to value added tax. That is a business transaction. Therefore, subject to business tax. But take note here in the last paragraph of section 105. The rule of regularity, to the contrary notwithstanding, services as defined in this code rendered in the Philippines, take note, by non-resident foreign persons should be considered as being rendered in the course of trade or business. So, to elaborate this provision, kahit na isolated yung transaction ng isang non-resident foreign person dito sa Pilipinas, magiging exception siya sa rule of regularity. Meaning to say, kahit na once lang siya nakipag-transact sa Pilipinas, subject siya sa value added tax. Hindi mag-apply yung rule of regularity. Nakuha nyo? Bakit po, ma'am? Kasi sabi ng batas. O, yan lang yung sagot. Nakuha nyo? No. Ay, wala na pala. Okay? So, na-mention natin no, last time kung paano ba natin malalaman. Di ba, we mentioned na merong tatlong klaseng transactions for VAT. Di ba? We have VAT transactions, we have zero-rated transactions, and we have exempt transactions. Okay? So, the general rule here is lahat ng mga business transactions or mga transactions that are in the course of trade or business, subject sila sa value added tax. That is the general rule. Diba? Hindi magmamatter sino si buyer, sino si seller. For as long as you are engaged in the ordinary course of trade or business. Either nagbenta ka, nagbarter ka, nag-exchange ka, nag-lease ka, either ka nag-service, or with an addition to importation of goods, subject ka sa value added tax. So na-mention natin kailan pala magiging zero rated, kailan pala magiging exempt. So yung technique na sinabi ko, i-memorize yung mga transactions under exempt transactions. Kasi that will guide you kung ano lang yung mga transaction na hindi subject sa value added tax. Kasi yung rule natin, lahat subject. Para malaman natin sino yung hindi subject, edi i-memorize yung exempt transactions. Nakuha? Okay? And then, pagkatapos nyo i-memorize yung exempt transactions, punta kayo sa zero-rated transactions. Ano ba ang common denominator sa zero-rated? Ang dami kasi ng list natin, no? Paano natin i-simplify yon? Okay? Ang zero-rated, pag yung goods ibebenta sa labas, ilalabas ng Pilipinas, yun, subject siya sa zero-rated rate. Okay? Nakuha nyo? Pag ilalabas natin, okay? Kasi, meron tayong principle sa value added tax, itong destination principle. Okay? If the goods or services is to be used or consumed in the Philippines, then that will be subject to value-added tax. Destination principle kasi tayo kapag consume siya dito sa Pilipinas or ginamit sa Pilipinas. Kaya nga yung mga importation, kahit na these are not made in the ordinary course of trade or business, subject sila sa VAT kasi gagamitin sila at ikukonsume sila dito sa Pilipinas based on the destination principle. Now, based on that principle, kung yung goods or properties or services ay i-offer natin sa labas ng Pilipinas, then that runs counter sa ating principle na destination principle. Diba? Kasi yung destination principle, sabi dyan, goods are consumed or used in the Philippines, subject sa VAT. Eh, nilabas natin ng Pilipinas. So, ibig sabihin, hindi tayo mag-i-impose. Subject pa din siya sa VAT, kaya lang, yung rate natin is at 0%. Okay? Hindi siya exempt. 0% lang siya. Okay? Wala kang VAT, output VAT. Okay? Ganon. Nakuha nyo? So, yun lang ang common denominator ng zero-rated transaction. Kahit basahin mo yan lahat na yan, ipapalabas ng Pilipinas. Okay? Export sales, yung mga ganon. Dito nag-manufacture, nilabas ng bansa. O, ganon. Pwede ganon. So, subject yan ng zero-rated. Now, punta tayo sa kaibahan ng VAT, zero-rated, tsaka exempt sales or transactions. Okay, mag-whiteboard tayo. Okay. VAT-able, di ba? Sabi natin kanina, may VAT-able transactions. Obviously, yung mga VAT-able transactions, subject sila sa VAT of, magkano yun? 12%. Okay? Now, yung isang type is, meron tayong zero-rated transactions. Actually, VAT-able persons to, kaya lang, yung tax rate nila is at 0%. Okay? Then we have exempt transactions. So, exempt means no tax imposed, di ba? Hindi tayo maglalagay ng rate kasi exempt, di ba? So, ngayon, ano bang kaibahan ng tatlo? Etong tatlo, etong VAT-able transaction, walang problema, alam natin. Subject siya sa 12% VAT. So, may tinatawag tayong output VAT tsaka input VAT. Etong output VAT, this is 12% of sales. Okay? Input VAT is 12% of purchases. Pero alam nyo, parehas lang yung dalawa. Ang difference lang nila is a point of view. Okay? Paano yun? Paano natin yun i-explain? If you are the seller, kung ikaw yung nagbenta, ang tawag sa VAT mo is output VAT. Nakuha? Based on sales. Kung magkano yung presyo, doon natin i-multiply yung 12%. Kasi palabas yung goods, tama? So, output VAT. Pag ikaw naman yung buyer, on the part of the buyer, the 12% is input VAT, is what we call as input VAT. Kasi papasok yung goods. Nakuha nyo? So, parehas lang yan, no? Parehas lang yan. Kaya lang, nagkaiba lang yung pangalan kasi dalawa yung parties natin. We have the seller and also we have the buyer. So, depende lang sa perspective. Okay? Now, paano ba yun, paano ba tayo nagmumultiply niyan? Kunyari, yung value ng car is at, let us say you are engaged in the ordinary course of trade or business and selling cars. So, ganun. So, let's say, for example, yung car is worth 1 million pesos. Net of VAT. Bakit may mga net of VAT? Meaning, walang VAT pa yan. Okay? Walang VAT pa. So, paano natin kinukuha yung VAT? That is multiplied by 12%. So, magkano yung 12% ng 1 million? Ay, hindi pala siya mandolin. Magkano yung 12% ng 1 million? 120,000, di ba? Okay? So, meaning to say, yung VAT is 120,000. So, ang babayaran mo dyan is, yung total na babayaran mo is 1,120,000. Okay? Nakuha? Kasi meron tayong 12% VAT. Paano kung yung VAT is inclusive na? Okay? Let us say inclusive yung VAT. Ito yung for example natin. Ay, inclusive of VAT. Meaning, sa amount na yan, meron ng VAT na kasali. Okay? Paano ba natin kunin yung VAT? Ang VAT is, since this is inclusive of VAT, this is no longer 100%. Tama? Isa na itong 112% kasi 100 plus 12% VAT. Nakuha nyo? So kung yan ang case, i-divide lang natin ng 112%. Kasi 100% yung value, di ba? Times 12% plus i-add mo yon, magiging 112%. Tama? So para ibig sabihin, kung inclusive ito, this is 112%. Okay? Tapos, kunin mo, magkano yung VAT? Dapat 120 pa din yan. Tama ba ako? Divide daw. Ay, mali. 1 million. 1 million para mapunta ka sa 100%. No? Magkano yung 100%? Okay? Pagkuha mo ng 100%, multiply mo by 12%. Ayan. Para makuha natin yung magkano ang VAT. Actually, pares lang yan, no? Binaliktad lang natin yung computation. Okay? Depende kasi kung saan, ano yung given na amount. Kung net ba siya ng VAT or inclusive ng VAT. Kung net siya ng VAT, no problem. Kasi you will directly multiply it by 12% para makuha mo yung value added tax. Okay? Tapos i-add mo lang yung dalawa, then ito yung total na babayaran mo. Pero dito, inclusive siya ng VAT. Meaning to say, ito given na. Tama? Given na ito. So, para makuha mo yung VAT, dahil given to, i-divide mo lang ng 112%. Okay? Para makuha mo yung 100%, yung tax base, then multiply nyo by 12%, makukuha nyo na ngayon yung VAT. Kung mapapansin nyo, parehas lang sila ng sagot. Okay? Kasi kapag nag-iba yung sagot, meaning mali yung computation natin. Nakuha? So, ganon. So, ganyan. So, paano natin i-illustrate yung output VAT? Okay. Dito sa car, imagine ninyo, isa kang car dealer. Okay? Ikaw yung car dealer ha. So, meaning to say, ikaw yung seller. Tama? Ako yung buyer. Okay? So, sa books of accounts mo, sa libro mo, yung i-record mo dyan is output VAT. Nakuha nyo? Ang i-record mo, output VAT. Okay? Ano, paano ba yung i-record? Debit, debit ka. I-record natin ha. Record muna natin. Magde-debit ka yan dyan ng inventory. Okay? Car. Ay, hindi pala. Hindi. Sorry. Ay, cash. Oh, cash. Cash, 1,120,000. Okay? Credit, inventory, car. Magkano yung, ano ba yung ilalagay natin sa inventory? Di yung cost, di ba? Yung cost niya. Yung magkano yung car talaga, net of VAT. Then, credit ka ng output VAT. 120,000. Okay? So, ginagawa natin to para maintindihan natin kung ano yung output tsaka yung input. No? Pero hindi tayo magde-debit at magke-credit sa exam, ha? Huwag kayong mag-alala, no? Okay? Gusto ko lang i-explain na paano ba yung illustration natin sa output tsaka sa input. This is on the part of the seller. Nakuha nyo? Nagde-debit tayo ng cash kasi naka-receive siya ng cash. Tama? Kung binayaran ng cash. Okay? Let us assume na mayaman ako. Okay? Mayaman ako. Binayaran ko kayo ng cold cash worth 1,120,000. Ayan. So, ibig sabihin, nakatanggap ka ng cash. Kaya debit siya. Kasi debit means pasok. Okay? Now, ang lalabas sa'yo is yung car. Kasi lumabas yung car, di ba? Binigay mo sa akin eh, di ba? So, lumabas sa inventory ninyo. So, i-credit natin yung value ng car. Pero, mayroong output VAT yun. Kasi seller kayo, tama? Sa libro ninyo, may output VAT, which is 120,000. Okay? Paano naman kung kayo ay buyer? Sa aking libro, sa libro ko, paano? Illustrate natin. Akyat ko. Illustrate ko Sa akin naman, anong pumasok sa akin? Anong pumasok? Ano ba yung natanggap ko? Sige nga, kung nakasabot ba gyud? Miss Codilia, ano yung natanggap ko? Nalagay ko na eh. Anong pumasok sa akin?
Input VAT attorney.
Input VAT, yes. And
sa buyer.
Ha?
Attorney? Ano attorney?
Ano sa to?
Input VAT attorney.
Input VAT.
On the part of the buyer.
And then, magkano itong input VAT? Miss Codilia?
120?
120,000.
120,000 attorney.
Tapos, ano pa? Input VAT lang ba pumasok sa akin?
Ang cash. Ang cash.
Bayad ng cash.
I'm not sure, attorney.
So ano, in exchange sa cash, ano yung na-receive ko?
Car.
Yes,
ang car.
So ibig sabihin, car, di ba? Kasi yun yung natanggap ko. Ganun lang naman sa accounting, no? Car yung pumasok kasi bumili ako ng car. Pero, nagpalabas ako ng cash. Tama? Kaya credit yung cash. Okay? So, ganito yung aking libro. Input VAT, input siya kasi papasok siya. Tama? Kasi ako ay isang buyer. Purchases. Purchases means yung mga binili mo. Okay? You are buying. Then, nakatanggap ako ng car worth 1 million, tapos cash. Ayan. Ngayon punta tayo sa perspective ng seller. Okay, balik tayo sa seller. Di ba sa seller is na-mention natin kanina na credit yung output VAT, no? Meron kang output VAT kapag nagbenta ka, tama? Ngayon yung seller, syempre, yung mga cars na binibenta niya, binibili din niya yan, di ba? From the manufacturer or from the supplier. Okay, nakuha nyo? Hindi naman talaga sa kanya yan. Kung buying and selling ka, yung mga binili mo, yan yung mga binibenta mo. Nakuha nyo? Nagets ba? O, kunyari, dealer ako ng car, syempre, mangumpra ko cars. Then, ibaligyan ako, tama? Now, pag mangumpra ko cars, of course, I am also paying for VAT. Tama? May VAT din yung kasali. Ngayon, ano nga yung tawag natin sa VAT kapag ikaw yung buyer, Mr. Haugan?
Input VAT, ma'am.
Yes. So, yung mga seller din, meron din silang input VAT kasi nagpo-purchase din sila ng goods, tama? So ngayon, paano ba yung computation natin sa VAT, babayaran nating VAT? Ganito yan siya. Output VAT less input VAT, yung sa mga purchases mo, equals net output or input VAT. Depende. Depende kung ano yung mas malaki. So, kung nakabenta ka ng cars, so lagay mo dyan kung magkano yung output VAT sa benta mo. Then kung nag-purchase ka naman ng car, magkano yung VAT doon sa car na nabenta mo. Okay? Kasi meron kang input VAT nun, di ba? So, i-deduct lang natin, makukuha natin yung net output. Kung sobra yung output, then net output. Kung sobra naman yung input, then net input VAT. So, anong effect kapag may net output? Ibig sabihin, meron kang liability. May babayaran ka sa BIR. Pero kapag yung input VAT naman, yung mas malaki, yung net out input VAT yung resulta, ibig sabihin wala kang babayaran, i-carry over natin yan sa next period. Nakuha? So, yun yung ano natin na, yun yung scenario ng VAT. Okay? I hope clear yan sa inyo. So, yun yung vatable transactions natin. Now, let's go to zero-rated transactions. Kasi, bakit tayo nagbigay ng mga computations? Yan kasi yung difference nila sa zero-rated tsaka sa exempt. Okay? Para ma-illustrate natin ba na maintindihan natin mabuti. Balik tayo sa computation ha. Output VAT less input VAT equals net output or input VAT. O, ganun. So ngayon, i-distinguish na natin kung ano yung kaibahan ng vatable transaction sa zero-rated transaction at exempt transaction. Alam na natin kung anong ibig sabihin ng formula na ito. Alam niyo na kung kailan ba magkakaroon ng output VAT, kailan ba magkakaroon ng input VAT. Alam niyo na, di ba? So ngayon, i-illustrate ko na kung ano yung difference. Dito sa zero-rated transaction, output VAT, same lang no, output VAT, meron kang output VAT, meron ka ding input VAT, okay? Kaya lang, yung output VAT natin dito is at 0%. Nakuha? Meaning hindi ka nag-charge ng VAT sa mga export transactions mo. But you are entitled to claim for input VAT. Okay? Net. So, meaning to say, magkakaroon ka dito ng net input VAT. You are entitled to claim for an input VAT. Okay? Kahit na 0 yung percent. But here, in exempt transaction, exempt, meaning no VAT, at wala ka ding no input VAT. Okay? Wala kang input VAT. So, paano ba? Paano ba natin i-illustrate yung example natin kanina? Like for example, exempt ka na, you are an exempt taxpayer from VAT. Pero, nung bumili ka ng goods, merong VAT. Okay? Paano yon? Paano ang treatment nun? Exempted ka from VAT, pero may nabili ka na goods na subject to VAT. Purchases ba? Purchases. Ang sabi ng batas, yung input VAT will form part of the cost of the goods purchased. So, magiging part na siya ng cost of goods. So, sa example natin kanina, kapag purchaser ka, so car, magiging 1,120,000 na yan. And then cash, 1,120,000. You will not record any VAT kasi you are an exempt kasi. Nakuha nyo? And you are not also entitled to claim for input VAT. Walang output, wala ka ding input VAT. Nakuha? So, yan yung difference ng tatlong transactions. Okay? I hope we are clear with that. No? So, we have no time na. So, at least, di ba, we've covered no, substantially yung